December 7th. I will be posting this on the Teams channel, so you can review it later. I do ask that I put a little note inside here that you please use the slideshow mode for viewing the slide deck. There are some links down below and some other slides that can only be used in the slideshow. To do that, if you have PowerPoint, you'll see up here on my cursor is pointing at slideshow. You can click on slideshow and then start. And then as you click on each page, it'll move forward and backwards. There's little arrows and stuff. I want to put up real quickly this little notice here about the risks that are involved with any sort of trading. I'll leave this up here for about 30 seconds so everybody can read it. It'll also be in the PowerPoint deck that I post as well for review. So what I plan to do today is I already looked at the stocks predator. I'm not sure if you guys have it yet or not, but I looked at the stocks predator. I will bring it back up in a second. And these were the trade candidates, the ones that have the arrows next to them. And there's two different types of analysis here. Today, I'm looking primarily at the ones in purple. There's 4 in purple. And I'll explain the difference between purple and the blue in a second. So as I go through today, I'll be looking just at the purple ones. Okay, so the purple ones, you'll see have the identical color in the Confluencer Meter in both the XA and the UA brackets. UA is for the unusual activity, option activity, and the XA is for the xBrat algo that GTS sells as a product. The ones in the light blue or sky blue, they have the XA and the IA set, the same, whether it's red or green. So there's some multiple light blue that you'll see with the same colors in the XA and the IA. Those I'm not going to really touch base on today, as I want to focus more on the option side of this. But I'm going to bring up right now the actual stocks predator, and you can see that the picture that I pasted in the PowerPoint slide come from this Confluencer Meter here. I will be using this screen moving on, along with a couple other screens, but this matches 100%. If you have the xBrat stocks predator, it is important to shut the program down each day and restart it the next morning so that you can get a new list of symbols that could potentially be candidates for trade. All right. Okay, I'm going to move on at this point in time. I want to go back to the sheet here. So I'm going to be looking at the AVGO, COGT, CBS, and PHR, time permitting, to see which ones, what I do, my process-wise, what I do based on what I've seen here. Okay, so starting with AVGO, I'm going to go back to, you can see it here, AVGO, there's 2 reds, which means basically it's the bearish outlook at this point in time. So I'm going to go to under the UA column for AVGO, and I'm going to double click on that. And I can see here that the expiration date for this unusual activity is December 15th. So that's coming up in about a little over a week. So what I do is there's a couple things I'm interested in. I look at the implied volatility, and I did record a class about a week and a half ago on implied volatility. It's in my stock options channel on the team site. So please feel free, if you haven't seen it, to review that. That's a pretty important component here. And then there's also this victory rate out here. Now, typically, the recommendation from the developers is that you probably don't really want to be pursuing any sort of trades if the victory rate is lower than 10. Okay? So this is only at 0.87, extremely low victory rate, which basically has to do with the rate of return that you can expect from this date here until the expiration date if you were to take a trade. So that's a pretty low victory rate at this point in time. It's probably not worth the risk to reward at this point. So I do want to talk a little bit. I am going to bring up a chart for AVGO. As you see here, it says it's got an implied volatility of 34, but I want to bring up a chart, and I'm going to bring up AVGO on here. I don't have it. Let me just bring it up here. Okay, so the implied volatility that you see on the charts and stuff like that, it's a relative term only to the stock that it's associated to itself. And again, I made that video recording, so please feel free to review it. I don't want to go into great detail today on it, but we want to look at implied volatility, and if it's a low ranking, right now it has a rank of 17.5, which means that only over the back year, only 17.5% of the time has the implied volatility been lower. That's ideal whether you're going to be buying a long, buying a call or buying a put. You want the implied volatility to be low. If it's really high up, like over here back on May 26th, you don't want to really be buying that because implied volatility impacts the price of option stocks or option prices. And you don't want something that's going to be deteriorating because that's going to have a negative impact on the option, the price of your option that you, the call or put that you bought. So, but getting back to AVGO on this, I'm not even interested in looking this any further, only because of the 0.87 is so low. So I want to go to the, oops, sorry about that. I want to go back to the Confluence Meter here. I just overshot it though. Okay. I'm going to go back to the Confluence Meter here. So after AVGO, the next candidate was that COGT. So I'm going to double click again on that, and this would be a potential call, a long call possibility. Here's COGT. Again, I go across. Two things stand out. It has a really high IV here and it has a really bad victory rate. So I just off the bat, I would ignore this one and not pursue it. But I do want to go over to the chart again here, and I'm going to type in COGT. And we saw that it has a really high IV. If you look down here, it says the IV rank is almost 79 at this point. We wouldn't want to buy a call or put at this point in time because it would have a negative impact as that moves down through here. But again, please review that implied volatility recording that I put out last week. And you can always feel free to ask me any questions in the chat part of the Teams channel. So I'm going to bypass COGT at this point in time because again the IV is too high. There are other things you could do with credit spreads. I also have two recordings I put out over the last couple weeks on credit spreads. If you want to sell options and get the credit, the premium versus going long, credit spreads are ideal when you have a really high IV. And you're moving in the direction that you want to move in. That's an option you can look at. So please review that in the stock options channel as well. But just for going long, straight up long calls or puts, I'm ignoring this one right now because the victory rate is too low for COGT as well as for AVGO. So can't guarantee every day that we're going to find a trade, but I'm just going through my process right here. The next one up is CBS that has two greens. I'm going to double click on that. And let's see, CBS looking at an expiration date in March, so that's quite a bit off. It does have a negative victory rate, so I would probably ignore this one as well. However, I do want to just take a look at the chart and see what this thing would look like if it was a candidate. So you can see down here, it's got an IV ranking of 31.93. It's not the greatest for going long, but it's not terribly bad. But it does have, and you want to keep track of when earnings and everything are coming out. It's got plenty of time before earnings. But again, the victory rate being a negative number, I don't want to take any risk on that one at this point in time. So going back to the filters on the Confluencer Meter, the next one was PHR. So I'm going to look at PHR, and it has, now this one has a victory rate of 9.51. Not exactly 10, but it's pretty close. But it has the potential for a high IV, so it might not be a good candidate for just buying a call at this point in time. But let's go back to the chart for PHR. One of the main things you want to be cognizant of when you're deciding whether you want to make a trade is you're not only you're looking for the confluence, but you're looking for reasons not to make a trade. If you've heard Paul in any of his xBrat or GTS tutorials, YouTube stuff, he does emphasize, look for reasons not to make the trade, because there's always a trade sometime at some point, but you don't want to take a trade if you don't have really strong confidence in it and the confluence is working for you instead of against you. So this is PHR. It's almost at 10 on that victory rate. It has a pretty low IV at this point. 36% of the time it's under. Now, what I'm concerned about here is that they just had earnings report, what's today, the 7th? 2 days ago, okay? So typically after earnings, the implied volatility, which is a measure of risk in this particular asset or whatever asset you're looking at, because the earnings reports are an unknown until the report is provided, you'll see the implied volatility scaling up. This is when you want to buy, when the implied volatility is low and move up. It is possible that this implied volatility could dip down lower, as you've seen. Here was an earnings report here. It dropped and it got down. This earnings report was on May 31st, and then around June 20th, a few weeks later, is when it bottomed out on its implied volatility. We had earnings here on September 6th, and then right around September 8th, it bottomed out. So it is possible that this is bottomed out, but it's also possible that it could drop down a little bit low and impact your price, depending on how fast the actual stock's moving up. The one thing about this PHR was that they're looking at an expiration date of next week, December 15th. So I'm somewhat cautious on making a trade here, but let's just for right now pretend that this does look. I'm 50-50 on whether I would take this. The first thing I'm going to do is I want to look at strike price that they're recommending. So the recommended price is 17.5. So the next thing I like to do is I'm going to bring up a chart, a different chart, if I can find it. Bear with me. Okay. So here's the chart on PHR. What I want to do is I like to look at, if you don't have the guardian zones, you can create your own support and resistance lines. But GTS, Paul's company, has the xBrat guardian zones, which create, draw in the support and resistance zones for you and dynamically continue once you have it on to make adjustments as, pivot points change up and down and so forth. So if you don't have guardian zones, I strongly recommend it because it can really save your bacon when you have before you're making a trade or as you're in the trade, and then you see new support and resistance zones created by the guardian zone. It may change your trade management strategy and help you exit before you and keep some of the profits that you already have. In this case, I'm using it to determine whether or not I should even get in here. 17.5 was the strike price that they were referring to. As right now, there's the resistance is at the 22 level, so we don't have any, and there's nothing below, no other zones below. So my next checkbox here is there are no support resistance zones, or in this case, resistance zones that would cause me to have any concerns. So at this moment, this is still looking like a potentially good trade. So I check that box off there from a support and resistance analysis. Next, I'm going to go back and look at the trade. I want to bring up PHR, and the December 15th is the one that they were referring to for the call, and he was looking at the 17.5 strike price. So first of all, I usually make sure, now it depends on this, all the platforms, whether it's Think or Swim, like you see here, Ninja Trader, TradeStation, etc. They all have the general Tasty Cake, Tasty Trade. They all have the general ability to look at the option chain and probably customize. So I like to have volume and open interest on there. I use Delta and the bid-ask price. So they're saying 17.5. It has a 67 Delta. Has a lot of open interest, and the volume doesn't seem like there's much volume on PHR right now. It's very low volume. So, and the other thing that has me a little concerned at this point is the gap between the bid and ask price. I usually like to have it under 10%, and that looks much closer to maybe 15, 18, 20%. I'm not going to get my calculator out right now to do that, but that's what it looks like about there. So I'm not crazy about that spread there. At this point in time, you can see it jumping between 65 and 95. The reason that this is important is the ask is where you would be buying it at. The bid is where you'd be closing or selling your position at. If you're buying it at 95 and something, and it's sitting at 65, that's a really poor, you don't want to be closing at that. So that means that this would have to go up quite a bit, like almost 30%, to start catching up to the ask price that you originally put the trade in. So unfortunately, for today's session, I wouldn't even take this trade at this point because I don't like the bid-ask spread at this point in time, and I don't like that there's not much volume. None of this volume, there's not much volume on this stock at all, at least not in not at this moment today, even though it does have some a good chunk of open interest there. I just don't see the volume to support the trade at this point in time, given there's only 8 days left before the trade. It's not to say you couldn't take the trade. Just following my process, though, I would not take this trade today. I know we're at 12:22, about 8 minutes left. First of all, if anybody can talk, does anybody have any questions at this point they would like? Keith, I'll hold off a few seconds if you want to unplug and ask a question and plug back in. Okay. I guess since there's no questions, I do want to go back to this PowerPoint because I did mark off these other ones like ACHC in the blue arrow. So we didn't see any, even though the purple arrows were candidates, nothing met my criteria for taking, for putting the trade on for the risk and reward that would be associated to it. So these light blue ones, now what they represent is the same color being seen in the xBrat algo. And if you don't have the xBrat algo, you can, on your own manual charts, in this in the last 4 slides of the deck I'll be posting, you can have links to those products if you're interested. But anyway, so what I do here is I'm going to look at, this is IA stands for Insider Trader. So I'm going to go back to the actual stock Predator and explain this a little bit more detail. So if I go up to ACH, it has the same, it would be great if all 3 colors were the same, but there's nothing on this today's meter that has all 3. But I could take a look at this one, and you would double click on the IA, and it'll take you to ACH, let me scroll this up. You can see the blue line here, blue color. So ACH is Acadia Healthcare. You can see that there were 2 insiders, and they're listed below. One was John Hollinsworth, and the other person was Deborah Osteen. And one's an executive vice president of operations, and Deborah is a director, the best I could tell. And they did a sell, and it tells you the information that they sold. And then over here, you can see the actual FEC or SEC, Form 4 that they have to fill out, being that they're employees, senior leadership type of employees. And you can see all the details of how they sold their stock and everything down here and below. So this could be something that you could go in and say, all right, well, we could look at a chart and come up with some determinations of were they selling the stock before earnings, and earnings already occurred. I'll bring up a stock chart in a second, and then that may help you make a decision. Like, are you going to buy this stock because they're selling it now and expecting it to go down, or are you going to try to look for some sort of options play? So I'm going to go over first ACHC and go back to my chart here. I'm going to type in ACHC. So earnings, well, I'm going to go back to, I want to see when they actually sold. So it looks like the filing date was November 16th, and yeah, so November 14th is when the sale that John Hollinsworth put his sale in. So I'm going to look at the 14th and start from there. So I'll go back for my chart, and November 14th was right here. So that's when they put right about there. That's when they put the sell in at this point in time. The stock looks like it's starting to have, it's mostly in a range-based channel at this point in time. It was after earnings, which was on November 3rd. So the earnings, it looks like it beat earnings. It was an estimate of 0.88, and it was a 0.9 was the actual when it came out. So the earnings beat at this point in time. But I'm not seeing anything overly earth-shattering at this point in time to help me make a decision on the daily chart anyway. I am going to go back. There actually is a little trading view is what they're using on the side for their charting. But trading view, Paul's team had to open up, his development team had to open up a bug defect with them because it's just bringing up Microsoft no matter what stock you pick on here. So they're working on that bug. So I'm not going to be able to use the chart here. So that's why I'm using my other one. So, but again, I'm not seeing anything in here earth-shattering for ACHC. So I'm going to go back. I got a few minutes left. I'm going to go back to here to see if there was another one that might be of interest. Let's look at CDW. That also has insider activity. And CDW is up here at the top. It's a catalog and mail order business. And there were, again, 2 people. This person, Christina Corley and Christina Leahy. The forms over here. It looks like around the 22nd. Around the 22nd is when they were making their sales here. They did sell the stock, sell off some of their stock. So that's all there for you to see. Again, you can see it only says Microsoft here. So until that bug gets fixed, it's hard to use these charts over there. So I'm going to go back over to here and put in CDW. And November 22nd was when they said that they made those sell. Could be they were, the dividends were paid, earnings had already come up. It's been on a move up. So this one may be, since it's been at a high, they may have just been taking profits at this point in time because they sold it right around the high of 219.71, looking back for over a year. So that may have just been some profit taking at this point in time. What I would do here is keep an eye on CDW. You can go back and put it in your, if you go back up to the filters page, if you want to, you can add it to your symbols like a watch list. You just go there and add to watch list if you want, and there it is at this point. It'll stay in the color that currently the Confluence meter says. It's a bearish at this point. So you could, keeping an eye on the charts that you use, the charting system, whether it's Thinkorswim or TradingView or whatever, NinjaTrader, I would keep tabs on it. And if you start seeing some sort of big time move, you could join it at that point either by sell or buying puts, or if you want to just sell, short the stock or do any sort of credit spread around that direction type of thing. So I know we're at 12:30 right now, and it's unfortunate that some of you had technical difficulties, but I will post this recording. It'll take about 15 minutes after I end this recording for it to render, and then I'll put this along with the PowerPoint deck out there on the Stocks Predator channel. And like I said, please, I'm going to just run real quickly, go to back over to the teams, and I'm going to show you that here's xBrat Vic, who I am. So we have the xBrat Stocks Predator channel, which we're running from right now. This is where I will post the video and the PowerPoint deck. There's other ones from the past you can look at too. And then the stock options channel that you see here, you can see credit spreads that were used, range bound for iron condors, the implied volatility, one is up top here. So feel free to go through there, and you can always post questions under these replies for each section. I also have the product list up here if you are interested in any of the software indicators and suites that GTS has to offer. Feel free to look through. It's you can look by the different trading platforms that have, and that, if you have any questions on this, please let me know as well. So with that, I will turn off the recording, and right now, and I'll just say thank you.